So, where are we?
We are in Westminster, Maryland, at my home.
At your home? Okay. It's a beautiful property.
Thank you.
We were talking a little bit before about like the chance to get it. It was like your dream home, and not many people get a chance to buy their dream home. So, very blessed.
Thank you. We worked hard for it.
Yes, I'm sure you did. What is this?
Okay, so I think I want you to kind of tell me. So my husband has a passion, and his passion is hunting. And so I don't know if you ever tried venison before.
Yes.
Okay. So this is venison tenderloin.
Okay.
And then roasted potatoes, which is our specialty. And I'm always a big salad person, so I love making a salad for guests.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's dig in real quick.
Yep. Can we say a prayer?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
No. So we're Catholic, so we always say a traditional prayer to begin every meal. So no need to, join in, but I always start with in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
May the souls of the faithful departed by the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's
dig in. Yeah. Yeah, so we are big meat and potato kind of people here in this house. I never actually had venison until I met Andrew.
How long have you guys been together?
So we're about to celebrate our 14th anniversary of marriage. We actually went to college together and didn't really even know each other until after college. We had kind of like seen each other around, but never really crossed paths that deeply. And then I always thought he was like super amazing. I really did. And never thought I would have had a chance with him. And then after college, I went down to Virginia Beach for a friend's party. And she said, Andrew Hart's going to be there. And I was like, oh, well, I will definitely come. And from then, we actually talked that whole night. He called me the next morning, asked me for breakfast, and I said, I'm on my way home to Maryland. And he was like, well, then I think you should come next weekend. And I said, no way, I'm coming back down next weekend. He was like, I'm going to call you every single night until you say yes. So he did. He called me every night until I said yes. Friday morning, I said, okay, fine. I'll come back down and go to your party with you. And that was when I kind of realized, okay, I'm falling for this guy. We talked very deeply about faith and children right from the bat, like right as soon as we started dating. And I knew, like, because I was done with, anything that was superfluous. I was like, there's no reason to get into a relationship if we didn't have the same goals.
Right.
And so I really wanted someone who had my values, like who had the same Christian, I wouldn't even say conservative at that time, just because it was so long ago, like you don't even think of those kinds of values as conservative back then, but just like common sense things. Like you want your kids to work hard. You want to raise a family. You want to have a bunch of kids. Like I wanted a bunch of kids from the very time that I was young. And I said that, and he was like, okay, let's do it. Like very on board from pretty much the very first time that we talked. So, wow. Yeah, he's amazing.
I talk to people, and it seems like that's harder and harder to find. I've been married. We're about to celebrate 2 years, so pretty new.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And just even when I talk about marriage, not like a lot of people on Twitter are critiquing marriage, but I just talk about like my personal experience and how we see things and how we treat each other. We were talking before about the article I wrote, My Wife Saved My Life.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to give another perspective of like what normal people go through. Because I think human beings are wired to see the negative before the positive. You know, we slow down when there's a car crash, you know, that kind of thing. And so we notice that 50% of the people get divorced, but we don't notice the 50% who remain. And it's just how you kind of see things. Now, that's not a good number, but at the same time, I think there's so many nuances to it. But I think there's a quickness to discard marriage.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, to say like, well, my parents got a divorce, so hence marriage is useless.
Right.
Or it's just a piece of paper. It means nothing. But I always wanted to get married. But it wasn't until like being in that process of actually going through it, where you kind of understand things a little bit more in a mature way besides wanting to be married. So it's very interesting that he was just like, right off the bat, he knew exactly what he wanted. And when I met my wife, I knew exactly what I wanted.
Wow.
You know, so I'll just tell real quick. So our pattern is September 2019, we became official. September 2020, I proposed to her. September 2021, we got married.
Wow. Wow.
So I knew exactly what I wanted. When I met her, I knew about 5 months in that I wanted to ask her to marry me. There were certain questions I needed to ask her before I made that decision. And I did it in a way that she didn't know why I was asking her. But, you know, I did these particular things. And she had no idea I was about to propose to her. So it was all shocking to her. And yeah, we haven't looked back since. And now we build upon the September. You know, so every September we're trying to make it a thing where we travel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we'll be actually going to Italy and Greece this year.
Oh, my goodness.
And we bounced around Europe last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's like our dream. So we had kids pretty quickly, you know, out of the gate and haven't been able to do that kind of travel, but we will. We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's so much to learn from traveling. Like, I think sometimes people just see it as like when I talk about it, I'm not like showing off. I'm talking about it from a sense of like, I meet people. Like, I know people who live in different places and I go and see them. Like, for example, in November, my son will be 18 by then and we'll be going to Europe and it'll be his first time. Wow. So he's coming with me to a conference in London.
Amazing.
But then after that, we're going to Madrid because, excuse me, I have a friend that lives in Madrid that I met.
Wow.
I even wrote about him in my book. He was very pivotal in my life. And my wife got to meet him because last year we went to Madrid. We did like a one-night thing in Madrid, and we met him and met his partner, and she was literally like a week from giving birth.
Wow. Wow.
So all of this stuff happened because of traveling.
Right.
And,
yeah. I mean, it changes your perspective on life. It does. It opens up so many possibilities. We would love to do that with our kids, but as you know, like, they're very young.
Yeah. It becomes very difficult.
Yeah, it's very, very different when you're raising kids and trying to, you know, just do everyday life. So, but yeah, Andrew and I, we'll get there. We'll get there. But just haven't gotten there yet. So
absolutely. And your kids are, I would imagine your kids are still young.
Yes.
And that's what kind of drove you into what you're doing now with Moms for Liberty. Because, well, I'll let you answer, like, what got you into Moms for Liberty?
Oh, well, I mean, well, first of all, like, I was always concerned about our public education in America. We had our son our first child in a wonderful school. I mean, it was, you know, one of the best schools in the country, actually. Well regarded in the county. I mean, we moved to this area for these schools, and everything was going fine. And then in kindergarten, and then in first grade, things like really went south. And I had my daughter in kindergarten at the time, my son in first, and things started to just plummet. And this was back. I mean, this was like 2017, maybe. And so I remember going to like visit him during lunchtime, and he was being bullied. by the kids in his classroom, and nobody was doing anything about it. Like, there were no lunchroom monitors. There was nothing being done. And I remember thinking, like, I will not let him be in that situation any longer.
Right.
There have been, I let too many things go where he came home way too many times, kind of upset and everything, and I didn't see it firsthand until I went to that lunchroom. And so I said, okay, let's start looking at other options. And so we searched out other schools, other possibilities. And so we moved him in the middle of his first grade year to a different school, kept my daughter at the public school, and then it was the same thing for her towards the end of kindergarten. Just nonstop, like, just not good influences that she was around. So I started to see that the public education around us, even though is lauded and, treated like we're one of the best in the country, that we just weren't doing. They weren't doing the jobs that they were supposed to do. So that was kind of an insight into the public school education. Then, we had our kids at a private school, at a Catholic school, not like anything crazy, but just a small parochial school. And when COVID hit, Adam, like, my life changed. I will never be the same after that. I remember the very first time they said, okay, we're going to bring the kids out of school. I thought to myself, this cannot last long. They can't keep kids out of school. That's just wrong. So my sister and I went to the playground, and we had our kids, like, out running around at the playground. Some of the kids were riding bikes, and the police came up to us and said, you have to take your kids out of this environment. And we were like, what? What's happening? I mean, we can't have our kids outside. Everyone's locked in their houses and can't go to school, and we're trying to get the kids outside for fresh air and having some semblance of normalcy. Right. And they wouldn't let it. And then that's when I realized something's wrong with what's happening. So, I went down this whole rabbit hole, and, we all know, everyone who's in Moms for Liberty has their moment. That was my moment when I was outside on the playground with my kids and they wouldn't let us stay out there. And then they started with the mask on the kids. And I said, absolutely not. I have a child who has ADHD, who literally cannot keep the mask on his face. He cannot. I have a child with anxiety. I have a child who is 4. He's literally 4 years old and does not know how to keep that mask on his face. And then I have a child who has a stutter. My middle son, Danny, is amazing and has started developing a stutter. It started developing right before COVID, and then it got so much worse during COVID. And I think it was because of the stress that he was under. And so all 4 of the kids that were in school had some kind of issue, whether it be just in preschool, learning how to, how to talk, how to read, how to speak. And then Danny with the stutter and learning how to read. And then Lainey with the anxiety. And then AJ with the ADHD, which was very severe and still is. Every single one of my kids were struggling through that. And I said, there's got to be some other way. And so I started fighting the mask mandates. I felt like I was the only person who actually stood up and tried to garner enough support to fight against this massive overreach. And nobody would follow me. Like, nobody would give me support. There were a few people, I'm not trying to diminish the few people, but I thought it would be like a ton of parents would see the detriment that's causing their kids to struggle. But no, it was so few parents. So I tried, we had a rally, we tried to get people to the State House and everything, and we did our best, just as a small group. But then I found Moms for Liberty, and I was like, okay, this is going to be helpful. We have other parents throughout the country who have the same mission, who are fighting for kids, who are fighting to get these masks off, who want the kids in the classroom. I need to get behind them. So actually, I applied to be a chair. And ironically, at the same time, another woman had just applied. And it's a long story, but I was told, oh, somebody else just started a chapter. So I said, oh, okay, I'll join the chapter. Well, she wasn't the best fit for the chapter. Like I'm telling you everything. Okay, I'm telling you right now everything. I could skip to the, PG version, but she was a little bit. She just wasn't cut out for it. And Mom Celebrity, like, how are they to know? Like they never met her. They didn't know.
Yeah.
Anything about her. Anyway, so she kind of had like a big falling out, and then the board was like, the Mom Celebrity board was like, well, who should be the chair? And I was like, I'm happy to do it. So we voted, and I was the chair. And then that was in September of 21. And here I am. Yeah.
So that's the story arc.
The trajectory.
Yeah. It's so fascinating to me because, I've been to the summit. I've met other moms like yourself. And it's like everybody has almost the same story. And what's interesting to me is like the summit has like these cameras and journalists there and all these people. But yet they can't do a math equation, right?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
They can't add up. How did all these women come together at the same time? This organization that started with a few women out of a bedroom exploded in about a year. Why would that be the case?
Right.
And they translate it into being, well, you guys are just like some Al-Qaeda terrorists who've been sitting and waiting and now you've been activated. It's like, no, our society has broken apart because of the pandemic. Like that was the linchpin for like 90% of the people I talked to. Most of the people I talked to were never interested in politics, never got into politics, barely voted. And now because of what happened socially and what happened within schools and what was happening to their families, they got activated. They had no choice but to do something.
Well, and Adam, that's a really good point too, because I think it's when it happens to you and your kids are affected, that's when you have to become activated.
Right.
And what I keep saying to parents is, if you don't feel like your kids are affected, or you don't feel like you've been hurt in any way, think about like, what will it take? What will it take for you to finally say, absolutely not, I'm not going to go along with this anymore? Like, do your kids have to be hit in the face with a soccer ball by a man who plays soccer against them? Do they have to, go into a bathroom and see does your girl have to go into a bathroom and see a boy, flashing himself? Does your son have to be told, you might be a girl because you like the color pink or because you like to play with My Little Ponies? I mean, what's going to happen to you? But I saw what happened to me and I was activated.
Right.
But more parents need to think beyond what's happening to them at this moment and think, what I don't want to happen to my kids, So I had gotten to that point where it's like, I don't want mass to my kids, so I'm going to fight whatever it takes. I should have started doing more research before that to see how deeply infiltrated the unions were with the school system. Not that we have to go all the way back, but I was starting to see, okay, there were problems way before. Oh, sorry, Coco. There were problems way before that were protecting the teachers from doing their jobs and from protecting their the kids that they were teaching. So I could have avoided that a long time ago, but I waited until it was necessary for me.
No, I mean, sticking your neck out is extremely difficult to do. And, so with us saying this, I can really understand the hesitancy for someone who's living an all right life and is afraid to rock the boat, right? Because it's very scary to do something like that. But I got activated too, not because of the pandemic per se, but during the pandemic. That's when I wrote my book, because I felt like I needed to do something. I've always been into, I've been into politics for a number of years, and my political viewpoints have shifted and changed. I was never a leftist, but I would say like a moderate Democrat.
Oh, wow.
I would call
Okay,
myself a
yeah.
liberal. And there were
So
certain things.
why were you a liberal at that point?
Oh, I called myself a default liberal.
Okay.
Default Democrat. When I got into politics, it was actually from a racial standpoint, because the person who got me into politics was black, and they said Democrats are for black people and the Republicans aren't.
Wow.
And so that was my starting point, and I thought I was being informed by watching the news, but I was being misinformed.
Yeah.
And every right-leaning perspective that I heard was through a left-wing filter. That was the thing that I ultimately realized. And it wasn't until I started meeting more people, asking more questions, consuming more independent media. That person I was telling you about in Madrid, I've written about this. He's a British conservative. I didn't know that when I met him, but we bonded over football. I'm really into soccer. And we were just talking, and he told me he was for Brexit. And I said, well, isn't Brexit for these racist British people? In my head, I'm asking that. I'm like, well, this guy's been nothing but polite to me and cordial. So I asked him, why are you for Brexit? And he said, the United States would never allow an outside governing body to tell it what to do. And I said, well, that makes way more sense than the narrative that I'm hearing. So from there, he talked more about conservatism, libertarian thought. He introduced me to Thomas Sowell.
Oh, wow.
I never heard of it. So this guy was very impactful for me, and I just met him in a pub randomly.
Wow.
God
works in mysterious ways.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Actually, the story is even, when you say God works in mysterious ways, that story is even a little bit deeper. Little side note.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a huge Real Madrid fan.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, I'm going to Madrid, and normally I look for games. I've been to other games in Europe. And I looked, and I swear there was no games playing at home. I was like, okay, I guess there's no games this week. So I made it out to Madrid, and I get an alert. There's a game being played. And it's home? I was like, how did I not see that?
Weird.
That was very weird. Maybe I was just looking wrong. I don't know. But then I'm like, well, I want to try and watch the game. So I was doing a walking tour. I left to go sit there and watch the game. But then I got another alert that Chelsea is playing. So Chelsea's my number one, and Real Madrid is my number two. So I'm like, well, I really want to watch the Real Madrid game, because right now, the Chelsea game.
I would love to know how you got interested in soccer, by the way.
I can tell you that, yeah. So, because Chelsea's my number one, I really wanted to watch, and Real Madrid was sucking that game anyways. So the only place, like when you're in that situation, the only places to really watch a game is at like an English pub.
Okay.
So I'm like Googling, like, where's the English pub? I went into one, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm not feeling this. So I left, and then I walked, and I found another one, and I stayed in there. And it was Chelsea versus Manchester United. We were down 1-0. It was the last second goal to tie it up, and I was super pumped. And I saw the United fans all disappointed. So I'm like, all right, the game's over. I'm about to leave. It goes from sunny to torrential downpour, just like that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, well, I guess I can't leave. So there was another game coming on. It was Manchester City versus some other team. I can't remember. So I was like, all right, screw it. I'll watch a game until the rain ends. So I went, sat down somewhere else next to this couple. The guy was actually originally from Manchester, been living in Spain for a number of years. And his partner was also, she was from Madrid. And he ended up moving to Madrid, and they became a couple, and so on and so forth. So we were just talking about all types of stuff. Talking about football, we're talking about movies and stuff. I was like, you want to exchange info? He's like, sure. And we were talking for like every week. Or actually, at that time, he wasn't as busy, so we were talking almost every day.
Wow.
Just going back and forth. But I think about, like, what if I did go to the game? What if it didn't rain?
Right.
What if I stayed at that first pub?
Wow.
My life would be very different.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I think about all those things, especially like the torrential downpour. It's very symbolic of like God raining down, like stay right where you are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. I think about that a lot too. Just by the way that like how Andrew and I got together. And then also with everything with Moms for Liberty, like I was desperate for something like that. And, I was just talking to my sister earlier. It's so interesting because I remember like I was a people pleaser before. And, I had a lot of friends that were on the left in high school and college. And I didn't want to just shake the boat. I didn't want to rock the boat at all. And, just wanted to, be everyone's friend and everything. And then it was like, it just got to be too late. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. COVID did something to our society that cannot be undone.
Yeah.
And all of our true colors came out. And I'm glad that, I'm not glad that it happened, obviously. Many people died and our country will never be the same. But it did give me friends and people who I think are better than, and have made me better than what would have happened pre-COVID, if that makes sense.
I think I have like this general philosophy that all relationships come to an end. Mm-hmm. I mean, that end could be death, or that end could be you just grow apart. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to prepare for that day to come. And when that day comes, you just accept it. Mm-hmm. And you appreciate what you had until that moment came. So for me, doing what I did, I didn't lose a ton of people, but I lost certain people. Mm-hmm. And I tried my best to be like, I'm not that different, actually. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. But they were unwilling to understand. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sorry at all. I feel like I've grown 10 times since doing what I did. And I don't regret anything. I don't regret our friendship.
Yeah.
These were friendships that I had and they taught me things. I learned stuff from them and I needed them at the time.
Yeah.
But clearly you're discarding me, not vice versa. So...
Or maybe the other way around, and that's for a reason.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason. But I think since I started doing what I'm doing now, with every step that I've made, it's not even necessarily like finding people who are like-minded. I'm finding like quality people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, because there are a lot of like-minded people that I don't even want to talk to.
Right.
But I am attracted to people who are good people, right? I don't agree with everything that they do. Mm-hmm. I'm not hardcore anything. I'm very moderate on many things. Mm-hmm. But I like them because there's something about their personality. There's something about their character, how they live. I was just at a friend's house, and they're Jewish and they practice, but they're family people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm like, I like that about them. Mm-hmm. I like that they're sticking with tradition.
Yeah.
I like that they're doing these things. There's
Even
something
though you
about
don't participate in that same practice.
Exactly.
You appreciate a really authentic family.
Right.
And I think what our culture is lacking right now is authenticity. Everybody's so fake and just trying to live what society wants, or live so that they can get clicks on on Instagram or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But there's something so unique and valuable and treasured about an authentic and genuine person or family. So I think our culture is craving that a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And much to what you were saying, those friendships ended. I think some of it could have been superficial in the first place.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, I mean, like, how much of friends were we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was it like we were just keeping the peace, and it was like,
it was friends of convenience, or friends that, you just happen to go to the same place at the same time and grow up in the same area. But why do you want to stay friends with those people when you don't really share the same values?
You don't share the
have
same
the same
values,
goals.
but they don't really provide anything of value to you,
True.
or your family. And it's not to say every person you encounter has to be something beneficial for you.
No.
But maybe just taking in more people who can benefit you. And that's why I think like Moms for Liberty was like a perfect app. Like you said, it just came at the right moment. It's because everybody was going through the same thing at the same time.
Yep.
And the media can't do the math. But I also think that the media doesn't want to do the math.
No.
They don't. They'd much rather smear Moms for Liberty. They'd much rather find them to be like some political activists who have been paid by the Koch brothers and or whatever to make them out to be scary. But really, they're the representation of a lot of frustrated mothers across the country.
Yep.
There's no other explanation as to an organization that went from 3 people to what are they at now?
120,000.
Okay.
So
120,000 in a matter
and
of a
growing
couple
every
years.
day.
And growing, right? There's something there.
Yeah.
But they'd much rather be like they just have like
They
this.
just want to scratch their heads and call us names.
Right. Like they have like some bigot radar that just picked up all the bigots.
Right, exactly. Which is so funny because I went, I went from being hesitant to, voice my conservative views to being embracing the transphobic name. Like, I'm like, sure, call me transphobic. I don't care. Like, that's fine. But it was because of Moms for Liberty and to see like this movement. It's so interesting, Adam. Like the friends that I've gained through this are genuine, great people who I'm learning things from. I've never learned so much from friends. Like we always shared interests and maybe hobbies, or our kids were the same age or whatever it was. It just happened to be. And I still love my friends from those times of life, of course. But these are friends that I seek out. I know that I'm going to be better because I'm friends with them.
Right.
And so it's really a very big distinction in that way. Like I think about Tiffany. Like Tiffany is who I aim to be, basically. I mean, both of them, Tina and Tiffany and Marie, they're amazing. But when I look at Tiffany, I just think about like where was she 5 years ago? What was she doing? Because what can I do in 5 years that will be more like Tiffany? Like she started her journey many years ago, but she was on school board not that long ago. She started her journey through school board. And so I'm just like, what can I do to be more like her tomorrow?
Right.
She's somebody that I think every single one of us aspires to be.
Yeah. I mean, she's been, I consider her a friend. She's been very cordial, and that's what's this past summit it's like dichotomies. Where we all go inside the hotel and everybody's happy, everybody's nice, we're all trying to learn. Like we feel fulfilled, like we're getting something out of this, like we're going to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And then we go outside, there's people throwing stuff, there's people yelling and screaming, and it's just like, it's so strange.
Yeah.
It's so strange, the polar opposite. And my wife, she came with me, and for her, she's not a political person, but she came with me to support. But
That's
for
awesome.
her, this goes down to other things, like why you should pick the right people
Right.
to marry. But for her, because she's not political, and I appreciate that about her, because I don't want to talk about politics 24/7. So I'm glad she doesn't know the latest thing that's going on. But for her, she felt so good being around such positive people.
Oh, that's awesome.
But when she goes outside, she's like, it's so strange.
Yeah.
Because
There's a different energy. There's a different environment.
it's so negative, so angry. And they think that we're doing something similar to them. Like we're having this
point.
rally, like, oh, those people,
Right.
like, and it's the complete opposite.
Right.
We're
Right.
saying let's pray for those people who are outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so
And we're invigorated and we're
Yeah.
energized and happy and yeah.
yeah, it's so strange. That's why. And first off, one thing I've learned from writing articles and stuff, it's kind of hilarious when you do piss off people. But, you know, when I pissed off a lot of people writing that Newsweek article saying what the truth was, being inside there, and what Moms for Liberty actually represents, which is just regular people, because the media does a terrible job at doing that. The media is controlled by a bunch of elitists
Oh yeah.
who think that they know better than everybody else, and you didn't really have any problems. You know, that's just right-wing conspiracy. Like, no, that
No.
happened to my kid.
Right.
That happened to my friends. That happened in my neighborhood. No, that happened. You know why it didn't happen? Because it didn't happen to us.
Right. Because we were sitting in our mansions and sending our kids to the best schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have any. Just work from home. Just work on your laptop.
Exactly.
You know, it's that mentality, and that's why I'm really glad to be part of the media, so to speak, because I get to represent regular people.
Yeah.
You know, because I've
awesome.
been through all that stuff. I've been poor and struggled and figured these things out, and I'm around. So I have a regular people radar.
That's great.
You know, I'm just like, yeah, that's what most people are like.
Right. Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
they're like, these people are extreme. And
Right.
I'm like, no, they're not. Like,
They're
a lot of people
normal.
are like that.
Yeah.
And most people don't think that way.
Right.
It doesn't matter what they look like. So when they're like, no, what they mean is like, it's this covert way. I was like, people don't think like that.
Yeah.
You guys are a bunch of fucking weirdos. Like, people do not think that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's so important to have proper representation within the media. Not you know, people like to talk about like race, gender, and all this other stuff. For me, the number one thing I talk about is class. We need more class representation. We need more working class, middle class representation within the media, because it's gone.
Yeah.
The people who have the loudest voices within the media are not part of that. They're outside that bubble.
Right. Yeah. And you know, something I heard
Oh yeah, thank you.
recently, what, and I totally agree with this. And we
you,
talk
sir.
about, you know, privilege a lot. Thanks, sweetie. And
Can I clear anything?
No, we're good.
thanks. You can join us if you want. We talk about privilege a lot, and I feel like I'm extremely privileged, and our kids are extremely privileged. And the reason why is because we have a 2-parent home, and we are working hard with, you know, like we're working hard to provide everything that they can have. I mean, how much more privilege can you ask for? So yeah, I am not. That word privilege gets thrown around a lot, I think, and it doesn't have anything to do with, like you said, with race, with gender. I'm not privileged because I'm a woman or because I'm heterosexual or because I'm white. I'm privileged because I happen to have been brought up in a 2-parent home that stayed together, and my dad worked hard and my mom worked hard throughout their entire lives and gave us the life that we have. And we're trying to do the exact same for our kids. We're staying together. We're married, and we're not going to leave each other, you know, and that's the thing is, like, when people talk about privilege, we have to understand what it actually means. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with class. Like, you know, like you said, I mean, we're in a different class because we have a 2-parent household who has a good job, you know, like, or more.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to make that distinction more often.
Oh yeah, for sure. I talk about that all the time. You know, I know many of the struggles from when I was a kid had a lot to do with growing up in a single-parent home. Like, I do math equations for people. 2 incomes are better than 1, right? If the father gets laid off and the mother's working, all right, we can keep things afloat until the father finds a job. But if there's one income and she loses her job, that's it. You go into poverty right away. And that's the reality for a lot of people. If one unfortunate situation happens, you're screwed. And what's hilarious to me is the people who scream the loudest about marriage, like those leftists who scream about marriage being patriarchal and all this stuff. All of them grew up in two-parent homes. All of them grew up in two-parent homes. The wealthiest people in this country married.
Right.
All of them. Why is that? Why is that the case? Because marriage is an institution that leads to upward mobility. Right. And they know this.
Right. They do.
But they tell everybody else, don't be part of that. That's old and antiquated.
They want to be better than them.
Right. That's exactly it. And, you know, as someone who's now newly married, I see that perspective now. Our economics are better. Our level of risk is more. I can do more of things like this because it's not just me, right? We're doing this together.
Exactly.
She supports my endeavors. If something happens with her, I support her endeavors.
Right.
And it's that union that helps to uplift both of us.
Exactly.
But they tell you, focus on your career, be single, do for yourself, be wholly independent. And maybe that's good advice for a short term, but not for the rest of your life.
Right.
That's a lonely trajectory. And I see a lot of young people who are falling into that trap of thinking that, well, my parents got divorced, so what's the point? Everybody out here is terrible. You know, they just go down, everything is negative about relationships.
Yeah. And you hear people like Elizabeth Warren, I don't know if you saw her tweet today, but she said something like, we need to ensure that that kids, that households are able to send their kids away to daycare, basically. So we need to ensure full-time daycare for kids once they're born. And my question is, how about we focus on enabling mothers to stay at home rather than farm their kids off to a daycare? I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to be a stay-at-home mom. Trust me. I know it sounds antiquated and it sounds old-fashioned, but some moms actually do want to stay at home with their kids. And so how about focusing on enabling families to have a one-income household?
Yep.
Like, it sounds crazy, but these people don't even think about it. They'd rather say, well, let's provide childcare for every child, which is insane. I mean, how much will we be taxed if every child has to go to a some kind of childcare?
But here's the thing. People like Elizabeth Warren don't mean that. So I've learned, especially when it comes to leftists and progressives, it's not so much about what they say, it's what they do. They all say this. They've been saying it for a long time. Bernie Sanders has been saying it for God knows how long. AOC says it. But you know what they do? None of it.
Yeah.
And like if you watch someone like Jimmy Dore, who I think is maybe like, he's not the social progressive that we talk about. He has some things I don't agree with on. I just don't think it's plausible. But he understands that basically all these people who claim to be progressives are really full of shit, especially the ones in power. They don't actually do those things. The moment that they can use their power to leverage for progressive stuff, the stuff that they talk about all the time, they don't actually ever do it.
Good point.
And so that's why I'm like, that's just all show. All of it's for show. I remember Elizabeth Warren when she first popped up talking about wanting to, stop these greedy corporations and do these things that some of them sound like some good ideas. You know what she did? None of it. As soon as she got power, she became a senator. Because she popped up on the scene like she was this person speaking up for the working class.
Yeah.
As soon as she got power, what did she do? Got in line with everybody else. Same with AOC.
Oh, yeah.
She blabbermouths about all the stuff that's wrong with society, but she pretends like she has no power.
Right.
But meanwhile, yes, Nancy Pelosi. So that's where like all these progressives who get in power, what they do is the easy stuff. They do socially progressive stuff that means nothing.
Yeah.
You know, they'll pass something ensuring transgender rights.
Right. Or housing.
What exactly did,
yeah.
it didn't do anything. But it sounds good.
Yeah.
Look at what we just did. But something that's meaningful, like ensuring that more jobs are here for working class people, providing an environment where one parent only has to work, not both of them have to work in order to survive. They didn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
They might throw a couple dollars here and there to make a show, but they don't actually do anything worthwhile. But the federal government I kind of think federal government should be kind of toothless. But I'm just making the point that they don't mean what they say.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I would advise anybody who's looking at progressives, actually really any politician, but especially progressives, because they talk a big game. They talk about all these big utopian ideas about solving every issue in society, and they solve none of it. They don't even attempt it.
No.
They don't even attempt it.
Yeah, they do. They have big ideas and no action. And I think that's where conservatism is going to come back, because we actually have plans for what to do. We actually have bills that we want to pass and ways to change society that I think will be beneficial to all of us. And so, yeah, we're going to change the culture. I think we'll get the culture back. I think it's gone so far and so deep, and we've lost so much as a country that people are starting to turn around and say, what's happening? Let's change it around. We can't go any further down this road.
I agree. And now here's my criticism of conservatives. Great ideas, terrible implementation.
Yes.
Great ideas, terrible messaging.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I've noticed for the past number of years of being like in this sphere. I don't think there's enough education when it comes to propaganda. Understanding messaging and how it works and how you can manipulate things. As someone who writes, I understand how important the right word selection is.
Right.
So
well, yes, exactly. I mean, the left has totally taken over language. They've changed words to mean different things now.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how they've won. Once you win the language, you win society. And they have changed language in ways that we can't even believe. I mean, changing mutilation into gender affirming care. They've done that.
Right.
Changing, massive baby murder into abortion or women's health care.
Yeah.
They've done it everywhere. So they're masters at changing the narrative and changing language.
Yeah. And
so we have to take back language for sure. And another way we have to do it is just by saying no, and we're going to stop it with actual action. We have a lot of talk, we'll say a lot of things, but then they actually have action, and we haven't had that action. So
yes,
and I think that comes from the grassroots, like Moms for Liberty.
Exactly.
We actually have ideas and ways to enforce that, and so we're going to do it.
And I'll tell you the other difference between Moms for Liberty and, let's say, those leftist organizations. For one, when you guys are protesting, you're protesting within your neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
I remember talking to some people in Wisconsin. I have Wisconsin fans, a lot of Wisconsin fans. And they were like, at our school board meeting, there were these crazy leftists. And we're looking at them like, none of these people are from here. Where are they from? They were from Milwaukee. They were
they bust them in.
They bust them in because they know the days and anybody can come in, right? It's open to the public. But they go in there and they misrepresent the community.
Right.
These people, they're like, I've never seen these people before in my life.
Right.
And these is like semi-rural areas, maybe suburban / rural areas. And like, these people don't look like anybody who lives over here. Yet they're coming in here giving all these like grievances, and they're so. But the difference is like that stuff you can start to see through, because they're not going to be there at every school board meeting.
Right.
But you live there, and you'll be at every school board meeting, and they're going to know who your name, and they know who you are and where you live, and they know that you're local. And so it becomes harder to dismiss you because you're on their ass. And you'll see them at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember you.
Yep. That the same thing happened a year ago. We had some parents bring pride flags in and have all the teachers throughout the county from pre-K all the way through high school display them in their rooms, pride flags. So they were donated. And so of course our group came out in full force against it. We were labeled bigots, homophobic, you know it, the whole gamut. And what they did was, so we really pressured our board to create a policy that said the only flags that should be in our county public school classrooms should be, the American flag, the Maryland flag, and our county flag. That makes sense, right? So, I mean, in other words, you cannot have MAGA flags and for everything from MAGA to the rainbow flag, the transgender flag. So we were met with a lot of opposition, and at one school board meeting, the very one that they were going to vote on, we came out in droves, and then the opposition bussed people in from Pride, Maryland, which is is based in Baltimore. 50 minutes from here. They bussed them in. We had never seen these people in our lives. And they came in. They didn't even know what they were protesting. They honestly did not, Adam. Like, it was that crazy. So they came in. They had the group had pizzas for them. They had they had music. It was like a big pep rally. It was supposed to be fun for these people who were bussed in. And I started talking to people, and I was like, so, why do you want to have these flags in the classroom? And all these people were like, well, I'm transgender. And, they made up these excuses. It was so fake. And so that's what I say. It's like, it's not as big. This movement is not as big as what they want us to believe. Most normal parents understand that we should only have the American flag in classrooms. We should only read books that have academic value. We should only be teaching our kids about regular subjects, not the fact that they might have been born in the wrong body.
Right.
Most parents think that, but they make it so much larger than what it really is, because they have loud voices and they duplicate themselves with fake profiles, these other people that get bussed in, whatever it is. So they're supported by the institutions. And so that's what actually makes them a whole lot larger than they really are.
I've been trying to tell people that the people that they're complaining about are the extreme minority. And it's the illusion that we're fighting against. It's the illusion that, like, when they're like, everybody thinks, and I was like, no, they don't.
No.
Like, the reason you think that is because the media, who controls the media? Well, the upper class do, right? They've all gone to the same liberal arts schools, and they're all part of the same ideology. And now they're putting it in full force, and they all have the same mentality, that everybody else is unenlightened and stupid.
Yep.
And so they're going to highlight certain people, which is why you turn on MSNBC and they have all these radical activist professors that show up. Makes you think that all professors are like this, but they're not.
Right.
A lot of them are, but they're not. And they show these people, look at the cats. They show these people and they focus on them, they highlight them over and over and over to give you the impression that this is the new America. And everybody is like this, get in line. And they want to scare you into thinking that society has changed. But in reality, that's why I tell people, get off of Twitter and go outside.
Yeah.
When you go and talk to people, like, everything's fine.
Yep.
I live in a building that is multiracial, multi-religion, multicultural. Guess what? There's no race riots happening in my building. There's no trying to fight for control over which demographic rule. We all get along. Hold the door open for each other, get along, move just fine. And that's the America that I've grown up in. Years ago, I lived in a somewhat rural area in upstate New York when I was a kid. For the most part, everything's fine. I was one of 4 black kids in the school. Everybody was fine.
Did you even notice? Honestly.
I mean, you kind of notice.
Okay.
But it wasn't, I noticed because someone always told me that you're black and you're the only one. You're a kid, you notice these things. But it wasn't, like, I didn't hate being there because I was one of the few black kids that were there.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't feel like someone was always coming after me or anything like that. That wasn't my experience.
Yeah.
Many of my friends, just by statistically, most of my friends didn't look like me. So that's the environment that I grew up in. Were there races that exist there? Probably, just like maybe anywhere else. But they're not out here in force trying to dictate what I do in my life or trying to oppress me.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So that's why, like, most people live in one area, and if their area sucks, they think the rest of America is like that. And I'm like, get on a plane, get on a bus, go somewhere, talk to people, because you start realizing that America is far more accepting. Like, if you talk to people from other countries, they'll be like, America is the least racist place you'll ever want to go.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We're multicultural. We're very accepting. We have people that are friends of ours who come from other countries. We accept people from other countries who want to take in the American dream, just like we're trying to achieve it. We see the benefit of immigration, right?
Yeah.
Controlled immigration that makes sense.
And also, I mean, think about how young our country is. I mean, we are in infancy compared to other countries. And we eradicated slavery as quickly as we possibly could. It's not like slavery started here in America. Slavery was worldwide and still is in many places. And to paint our country as the place that slavery originated from is just a lie, and most people, they hear about our past, or most people who are going through elementary school history right now are hearing about our past and thinking like, oh, we started because of slavery, or, our country is inherently racist and all of this. And it's like, actually, no. Yeah, we did have slavery in the very beginning, and it was awful, and it was tragic, and we know that it was wrong, and we acknowledge that, and we eradicated it, like I said, as quickly as possible. And so, we do have a great country. We have a wonderful country. We have a country that everybody else in the world would want to come to.
Right.
And to say to our children that they don't live in a great country is just, why would you do that to our kids? Like, why would you paint that lie to them?
Well, to create foot soldiers.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that makes sense. It's to create foot soldiers for some sort of cause. Like we talked about before. Their parents got married. Their parents understand. They take care. They all take advantage of capitalism, right?
Oh yeah.
But they crap all over marriage and crap all over capitalism. So they do the complete opposite of what they preach. Many of those leftists who go to Ivy League schools, they all grew up in that environment.
Of course, yeah.
All their parents are capitalists. All their parents.
Yeah.
My old boss built himself up, worked hard, built his own company, became a millionaire. Right? He's now retiring. Great guy. His kids are communists and socialists. And I'm just like, how does this make sense? How does this make sense? But that seems to be
because
this
they've been
weird
handed
pattern.
they've been given everything
Probably,
in their lives.
I think that's part of it. But I also think the other part of it, he sends them to these schools. He can afford to send them to the best schools, but the best schools have the most indoctrination.
Yeah, yeah. And he probably didn't inculcate his kids with ideas that oppose what he was going to send them off to. I mean, I'm not 100% for my kids going to 4-year colleges away from here. If they find a trade, I have one kid, like I mentioned, with ADHD. College might not be the best path for him. He might go into a trade, and I would fully support that. I have other kids that they are very smart, and college might be the best path for them, but I will make sure that they know if they come out thinking that the family is patriarchal and that, whiteness is a problem and that gender is a spectrum, then they'll pay me back for college, because I'm not paying for that kind of, indoctrination. But I think what we're doing now as a family is, like I said, inculcating them with the truth and with God and with beliefs that cannot be questioned.
Right.
It's truth. Like, we are telling them what real, like, what God told us from the very beginning. I mean, man and woman are separate, and we are all created equal. And, like, these basic truths that I think America was founded on, that we've come away from, but I'm not going to let my kids be indoctrinated by any other way.
No, I'm right there with you. I think the biggest thing that any parent can do is prepare their kids for the world. So, like most parents, like the small kid phase. For me, I was always like, I can't wait till he becomes old enough where I can give him the shortcuts. Because I struggled a lot with a bunch of different things. But I always wanted to get my son to an age where I could start giving him, like, all right, when you get out here and you see this is why. Right? Giving him those lessons. And I like that stuff, where I would sit here and talk to him for a half hour about, like, listen, let me tell you about this.
The best.
And it was like the right time, especially all this stuff that was going on. We just started talking about, it was like, I was showing him stuff. We would watch some stuff on YouTube, and, like, look at these crazy leftists. He's like, what's wrong with them?
Yeah. You show them a little bit. My son's the same way.
Yeah. You show them a little bit, and it's not necessarily like an indoctrination of anything. I'm just having them be critical. Like, ask yourself, should you listen to the most miserable people? Like, does that make sense?
Who do you want to be around?
Who do you actually want to be around? And you look at them, and objectively, they're the most miserable people
Right.
that are running around, who act like they know what's best for society.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be taking advice from miserable people.
Exactly.
For anything. Especially if you're talking about how I should live my life and how you see society. But even in, like Jordan Peterson says, your room is dirty, right? You haven't even taken care of yourself. And even mentally, you're not all there. And someone who is aware and just conscious of how people behave and move, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but I become very, very interested in it. So much so that in my book, I wrote, like, behavioral analysis and broke things down in psychological format. And even though I don't know the terminology, I've had psychologists read my book and they said, you're right. Like, that's correct. And actually, this is called this. And this is the term for this.
Yeah.
And it's just based off of me reading people and seeing patterns and noticing things. So I'm trying to show my son this. Like, when you see this outside of ideology, right? Because I've run into nutty people on the right too, right?
Of course, yeah.
Nutty people exist everywhere in every political spectrum.
Right.
So when you see this type of behavior, be aware. When you go out there and start dating, when you see a woman who acts this particular way, be aware.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And take note of that and understand what you're seeing. Look for the warning signs, because there are signs that are out there. People just don't know how to read them.
True.
And we're all doing that. We're all products of how we were brought up. And you can change your behavior. I've changed my behavior. We all, some of it's just maturation. But some of it's very conscious. You're trying to change yourself and try to become something different. But a lot of people don't do that.
Right.
So if they had a hard life when they grew up and they've accepted the hard life, then they grow up and they wear their hard life.
Yeah.
They walk around with a scowl. They look angry.
Yeah.
Every situation is negative. So when you see these people who go online, like the thing I try to tell people, like, Libs of TikTok, the most common pattern that you see with like all these crazy people have these crazy like, my gender today is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, the most common thing you notice, they're in their room and they're alone.
True.
That is the most common thing.
Yep.
I used to start watching the videos that Libs of TikTok will put out on mute. And I would just watch their faces.
Yes. And they look so miserable
They
all
look
the time.
miserable. They can't make eye contact with the camera.
Right.
They look disassociated.
Yep.
And I'm like, I get it. They're saying some crazy stuff that makes you want to say these people are ridiculous. But these are people who are in pain.
Look at them on mute. I mean, just watching them on mute tells you they're hurting, they're suffering, they are disconnected from society. So one thing I want to circle back to is indoctrination. You mentioned indoctrination. And I am not convinced that indoctrination is like the worst thing. I think everybody is indoctrinated at some point by some ideology. And so what I think we want to avoid is our kids being indoctrinated by the wrong ideology.
Okay.
So I want my children to be indoctrinated by a Christian faith, because I do think that faith and religion, that's a form of indoctrination, and that's not a bad thing. We want our kids to be fully immersed in a faith or a belief system, and that's indoctrination when you're fully believing and immersed in it. But what we don't want our kids is to be indoctrinated by the wrong ideology or faith system. And I do think that everybody has a faith system, and the left's faith system is, or God is, themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't think that there's anything bigger or greater than themselves, and so themselves is the best thing, and the only way that they can find answers. So that's all that to say, I think that indoctrination is not all a bad thing, because I think we're overusing that term in the wrong way these days, because we've had to, because we've seen that the left has fully incorporated that into their teaching. But I think that we need to get back to the fact that we should be indoctrinating our kids with our beliefs from the very beginning, and telling them and teaching them and showing them that our faith and our lifestyle is the best way to be.
So what I would say is, I generally agree with what you're saying. What I would add on to that is we want to teach our kids an ideological viewpoint that produces positive outcomes. So whether you're Christian, Jewish, Islamic, whatever, if you have a religious founding, and in the end you teach your child something that is ultimately positive, I don't care which God you're praying to or which principles, as long as those principles come out with a positive outcome, right? Where they're not hurting other people, where they feel uplifted, right? Where they can have a smile on their face and have a belief in something and feel strong enough to go into the world and benefit the rest of society. And what I'm seeing with the indoctrination that we're talking about is a negative viewpoint.
Yes.
And an automatic assumption that it's harmful. It's assuming that you can't do, right? It's
you
waiting.
have to rely on other people.
Relying on other people. You're waiting for someone else to save you.
Yep.
It's telling you that the better situation for you to be in is by finding areas where you can't do.
Yeah.
And that's the type of stuff that is
Victimhood mentality.
Mentality, correct. And it's so harmful for people. Like, if you were struggling with something and you went to a therapist and your therapist said, yes, you're right, and you should stay in that mindset, you'd be like, this is a terrible therapist.
Yeah.
Because we recognize
you
want to
get out of it.
You want to get out of it.
Yeah.
But they're telling you that that's what it is actually. And so thanks for coming.
Yeah. Let's keep on coming back every single week until until the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Until it ends, and that's where we want to keep you. We want to keep you in this victim home mentality. In fact, we want to cultivate it so that you become more of a victim, and
Exactly.
you see where it came from, and you see the people who are making it worse. Like it's just it festers itself. It's just it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely feeds on itself. But I'll ask this one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you optimistic for the future?
Yes, definitely. I see my kids' generation as the best hope for our country. And Adam, I'm telling you right now, I think what they went through with COVID and what they're seeing now is they saw what they went through, and they witnessed a huge travesty. They're recognizing that. Mm-hmm. They were. I hate to bring the mask back again, but they had to wear these things and suffer through something for nothing. And they're going to look back and see that. They're going to look back and see that they were told that they can be whatever gender they wanted to be, and they know that's a lie. Mm-hmm. They know, they're going to look back and say, we were fed lies for so many of these years, and we're going to rebel against that. We're already starting to see that high school boys are more apt to be conservative than they are liberal. Mm-hmm. I mean, which says everything to me. It says that it's not cool to be on the side of lies anymore. We've had that for so long. So, yes, our next generation is going to be the best generation. They're going to get us out of it. I do believe it. I pray for it every day. And I think that it's going to happen. I think our country is too good. Our country is so, so good and needs them. Yeah. And they will come through. They will see the detriment that all of this craziness has caused and say, we're going to turn it back around. We've started it for them. We've kind of greased the skids for them. We might not see it. It's taken 100 years to get here. It might take 100 years to get back to where we had been. But yeah, I have big hopes for this country.
I do too. I'm painfully optimistic, partly because I go outside and I meet people. And I think the changes in our society aren't as great as people think they are. Mm-hmm. It's just areas that have been captured by a certain class of people. Mm-hmm. And it's about making people recognize that this small group of people are attempting to control everybody. Mm-hmm. And if we stop fighting with each other, right, across both lines, and realize that there's something that unites us, and we start pushing back against that, mm-hmm. then that's when we can start having progress.
Yeah.
So, for me, Moms for Liberty isn't a conservative group. Moms for Liberty is a group that is trying to advocate for regular people to do something mm-hmm. about restoring things that were normal, mm-hmm. right? Because much of what you guys are asking for is basically what we've been doing since I went to school.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. We didn't have multiple flags in school. We had an American flag, that was it. Mm-hmm. And it was neutral. Mm-hmm. We had a neutral school,
yep.
a neutral schooling environment.
We all did.
And
yeah.
we all did. We didn't avoid talking about slavery. We talked about slavery.
Sure,
right?
Of course.
But it's how they're doing it.
Right.
It's how they're trying to triple it. They're trying to make it a non-neutral environment. Mm-hmm. And granted, there's no environment that's completely neutral. All right, fine. But they try to be neutral.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. They try to see both sides of it.
Right.
Because that's education. You have to see both sides of it to be educated.
Right.
But yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think America is going to get. Oh, sorry, the bees around here. But yeah, we'll get back there. We'll get back to where we were, and it's just going to take a lot of time. And like you said, being united around something. I think we need to find out what we need to be united around, because mm-hmm. we can't just be united. We're not
our
united.
Children.
Yeah. Okay, so let's find something. We have to be united around our children, around the future. right now, America is not united. There's no way that we are. What could we possibly be united around?
Politically, we're not united.
We don't have like a united anything. We don't have like a united border. Like our borders distraught. Our language. We don't have a language that we're united around. We don't have anything that we're united around. So let's get something. Let's figure something out as a nation that we can unite around the future, our children, whatever it may be, and unite again. We need to.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you so much for dinner.
Oh my goodness, it was my pleasure.
And the conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about a lot and learned a lot.
We covered a lot.
Yeah. So thank you for inviting me to your house. Lovely property and everything.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Definitely. Would love to.
All right.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
All right.